The first high-rise yan.
Because those people
Saan
that
to
try
lang
to
yan?
recognize them.
You cannot recognize.
Meron pa Tranvia. This was the Tranvia.
There is no Trambia in Baguio.
Hindi nga sa Manila.
Oh, this is Burnham. No,
Ayan, Burnham.
that's Olga.
Oo nga, no. But this man on the right, is that Mr. Muller? Doesn't look like him.
It's Burnham.
I
Ang
don't
ganda
know.
ng
We cannot identify the face.
That's the UCCP.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
UCCP,
that's the
right.
Burnham Park.
At
In the olden
makikilala mo,
times,
ay,
ayun.
makikilala mo si Mrs. Muller, mataba, at saka wearing a hat. Kaya,
Yun.
Yeah, that's the
Yun yun.
Burnham Park in the early years when they planted,
Ayan, oh. Yung museum.
This is Luacan. Waiting for a plane to
we
arrive.
don't know those people.
so, nga naman, waiting nga naman for people to arrive at the
Because the face cannot be identified. Sa kanila kayo, Sir Manda, Eugene. This one, that one, nakapalikod.
Talikod. Siguro.
Oh. He had the build like that.
Ano kayo dito, Auntie Jean?
We cannot
Teenager?
identify.
Teenagers?
Oh, this is the plane arriving now.
We are not in the society of those people.
No, he's still very young.
Not only that,
20s, no?
mga mayayaman yan, kami ninyon.
Yan,
Mga,
that is Tom
Ulo-ulo.
Highsmith with his plane.
Really?
I think so. I'm not sure. That's the trouble.
Wow.
But Tom Highsmith used to pilot a small plane and land at Burnham Park.
But this is-
Tignan mo, wala pang ano.
Grabe, ang ganda pa.
Where did you get this footage naman?
They turned it over to me, all the films.
Ah.
So I'm now the custodian of
Yeah, I
the,
think
the
this old man house. Old man's spec.
Kasi lang, expect mo ba dyan? Dyan Vice Mayor.
You cannot. Unless we see it.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you just look at it and then go, ito wala dito mga bata. Basta
The Mullers cannot identify that either.
Oh, di kita. Basta siya
There's
ma-identify
two
ko ni
small,
Mrs. Muller.
Oh, kung sana I get a bird's eye view of the, bird's eye view, full view of the pilot.
Nandiyan ni Mrs. Muller manono. Basta mata
Ginaganagan
si
ko.
Mrs. Muller. Singkit ang mata, nakasombrerong pirme. Oh, yun.
Maliit siya, dark. Singkit ang mata, slim siya.
She looks
Mrs.
like...
Muller. The Filipina Mrs. Muller.
Of course. Why is there ever an American Mrs. Muller?
I doubt that. Oh. The only one I knew who used to pilot was Tom Highsmith.
Yan,
Oh, yeah.
yan.
That's Mrs. Muller Jean. Oh.
Oh, this is Station Road now.
Basta pag hindi mataba, hindi si Mrs. Muller.
You cannot
Cannot.
identify the
Cannot.
face.
This ano na?
Ay, that's the
Bridal
one.
Peak.
Ano yan?
Oh, La Union na ito.
Okay, forward. Ito natin. Loan niya na naman pala.
Oh.
Anyway.
That's the Mortis and they're going down. Sino ito matabang ito?
Ewan ko, hindi ko kilala yung tiyan niya.
I cannot identify eh.
But we enjoyed, and the Mortis, we really enjoyed the Mortis before.
Ano yan, Jean? Nag-ano kayo? Nag-transfer from...
Yung picture ng kotse, yung Stanley streamer yun. Steamers. Stanley steamers.
Leony, try to have your memories in connection with the pictures that you see.
Eh wala nga eh, hindi ko I cannot identify them. This on the road to Baguio from the Mortis. Ayun na. Oh,
Ito
Pasig
bridal,
yan,
ay,
no?
That's Wet Canyon.
Klondike.
Oh, Klondike.
Ano yun?
Klondike.
Klondike.
It was ganito Klondike, ano? You know that's where the hot water is. Oh,
Ah.
sige.
Yun, yung mga Stanley cars, steamers, we
Pines
call
Hotel?
them Stanley
Hindi,
steamers.
siguro Klondike Hotel.
Oh,
Wow,
which
meron pang mga
the
ano,
Manila
animals.
Railroad
Ah, oo.
bought that for the ball, the Benguet
Well,
Auto
yun,
Line.
oh, mga ano,
Meron
deer,
pang mga
deer,
deers.
deer.
Deers, we use a
Hotel
lot of
San Miguel.
deers.
Where's that?
Still there, sa Klondike.
Ah, really?
Whose house it is?
Yun. You know where Government Center is?
Yes.
Where all those trees are.
Ah,
Trees of Imelda.
Lahat, including the convention
At the
center.
back of-
including-
It was a very big thing. Oh,
Yeah, but Convention Center hindi na nakuha. Malaki
and
din.
yung where the corner is now, where
Pines Hotel?
NBI now,
NBI now.
that corner like that,
Oo.
ganyan. This is the NBI.
Uh-huh.
That was a small
Eating place ni Mr. Peña.
restaurant ni Mr. Peña, and it was all surrounded by trees.
And the
all
important thing
trees.
is, they are only selling puro mga bibingka, kakanin, and everything. And
No
it was
junk
very
food.
Owned by
popular.
Mr. and Mrs. Peña.
Very popular.
Yun, yung papunta ng Jungle Town.
Uh-huh.
Ganyan. Ito.
So, how did you remember naman, Tita, Burnham Park? As connected to yung mga pinaglalaroan niyo. Did you used to play in Burnham? Or
Burnham Park was conceived even as early as 1904, when the first Philippine Commission was through with Cannon Road. The next thing was how to plan to make city of Baguio as the summer capital of the Philippines.
Yeah.
They already declared it in the Philippine Commission that it will be the summer capital of the Philippines. But then it was not yet called Burnham Plan, it was called the Baguio Plan.
Yeah.
Alright, that was conceived by Burnham. But you know, Burnham had only 9 days in Baguio. He had only 9 days in Baguio. And he had no time to study the plan. What he did was to go around on horseback and traveled up and down the whole of Baguio and Trinidad in 9 days. At the end of 9 days, he had to go back to Manila, talk to people in Manila, gather all the notes that the first Philippine Commission had. And then he went back to the States. And when he was in the States, that's the time that he planned.
But what?
He planned the Burnham
Burnham
Plan. And the thing, you have to consider that the lack of level land in Baguio, the lack of level land and the abundance of rolling terrain prevented the planners from a city plan that will look like Manila.
But how did they make the lake? Was it there already? Or naglulublob yung mga kalabaw doon? Or what?
Yes, they're heroes.
And because of that, the memory of this level land, the Burnham, is stuck in the mind of Daniel Burnham. That was the only level land, 1 mile by 0.75, 1 mile by 3/4 mile. That was the acreage of the lake. That originally was called Minak Lake. And that's why it was a Minak Lake, because all the mountains around send their water by gravity into that level land. So that stuck in the mind of Daniel Burnham.
What lake?
So he said, if I use that middle, that's the only big level space, he said, On the north, I will put the city hall, and on the south, the government offices.
So there was no lake there before, Tita?
There was
lake?
no. It was a creek
Oh.
It is a
where the 13,000 herds of cattle of Mateo Carino drank water and salt.
Wow.
That was a creek
So that's
supplied by all the mountains around it.
so when did they start building the lake then?
That was the when Burnham came here. That was the situation, and for him to build a city with rolling terrain and no level land, that was the only solution. So when he planned it, he said, "Okay, let's make Burnham the center of this. That Mina Creek the center." On the north, he said, "I'll put the government, the city government." On the south, he will put the national government. Because, why national? Because in 1904, they declared Baguio as a summer capital. It was already 1908, wala pong nangyayari. See? So, when they finally made it, he planned it like that. On the east, that way, Burnham is like, on the east are all the settlement because Mateo Carino and his clan were there already. So he decided that this will be all settlement for housing. And on the right, then he will put the commerce. But because it's all land like that, so he said, then the central road should be on the right, and the church, the highest mountain then was the church overlooking that road.
Eh yung ano naman, Tita, yung Session Road, what do you remember about it?
And let's say so, precisely. What happened then is when they started in 1910, they started to build Burnham Pike. And the picture that we have is 1914 when they were all digging. By wheelbarrow lahat yun. And then they put a tiny rail. Parang railroad. Maybe that is the railroad there. They put a tiny rail around the creek. And with that, they hold water into it. They hold sand and all that to build Burnham Park.
But what about Session Road?
Session Road is a much later thing.
Yeah, so now we go to Session Road after Burnham, Tita. So, what do you remember? Session Road and
Kicking
all
the
these
can.
Pines hotels.
Kicking the can.
Oh, kicking the can, yeah. The fun part.
Well, Session Road was practically almost a path lamang or something.
Trail lang.
The Second Philippine Commission, headed by
Forbes.
No, not Forbes. By
Secretary of State.
the one who became governor.
Huh? Right? Governor Wright?
No. The members of the commission is Luke Wright and
Forbes.
and
then
also
Ilihurut.
Worcester was also there, and then also
Worcester.
Ilihurut. And yung the head, what's
Peter
the-
Stanley.
who became the president of America later on. His name is big. Anyway, at that time, the cost of the Cannon Road was becoming so big already that they could not justify it anymore. It started with something like $450,000, but then it was coming already to 2 million. So they were told, "Hoy, tama na yan. If you're going to spend that much just to be able to reach a little place, a mountain place like what you hope to do, like Baguio and so on, that enough is enough." So they met here in to decide what shall we do. Shall we really give up the idea, or how can we plan so that we can continue? So in the Second Philippine Commission, they decided that they have to think of something, and they decided, you know what we can do? Let's sell Baguio as a summer capital. Now, how do we sell it as a summer capital? Let's give lands to the different bureaus. So they gave land to the Bureau of hospitals, ayan, maraming pera ang hospital.
96.
And then let's give land to the
96.
to teachers camp. Kanya naging teachers camp. Yun ang mga teachers.
So these are the
basta lahat ng bureaus binigyan. Also to Bureau of Public Works. They also have public land. To the Bureau of Forestry, lahat. They gave. And they told them, build. Also to Kamchunay, to the military, build. Okay, so they built little. Ngayon, so people would come because they already have an office during the summer.
Yeah. They held the government offices here in government center.
In different places, kung saan sila government center, and kung hospital, kung teachers camp, teachers camp, kung public works, wherever. But then, because they now have, they built little places lang naman, just so that their employees can come up during the summer and work. So when they came up, syempre, when they come up, their families go with them. And then, sabi nila, uy, ang sarap palang magtrabaho dito. Ha? And then, after that, they also brought mga pamangkin, mga kwan.
That's right.
Ngayon, dumadami na. And then, other people were encouraged by Governor Forbes, why don't you invest a little in Baguio? He was selling Baguio lots at very cheap price. Mga kwan lang,
At
mga...
centavos per square meter.
Yeah, in Section Road, we bought it at, hindi naman centavos, 10 pesos ata kami. Anyway, so they encourage, so bumili, somebody. And when they bought, they built a little, yung mga legardas, yung mga but tapos, they come here, the whole family enjoys it. So, little by little, people were coming. And then, they developed also country club, because Governor Forbes thought that when you come up to Baguio, what will you do? We better give them something to do, and maybe they can play golf, maybe they can play baseball. So when people were enjoying that, at the same time they come up here, they don't only sleep, but they can also play. So more and more people were coming, and so little by little, Baguio became the summer capital. That was it. But the reason is because the American government did not want to spend anymore for the zigzag or cannon
So,
road.
to earn money, they sold the lots. Ganun.
So let's talk about clothes. What did you wear then?
Huh?
Clothes.
We were not worried about clothes.
Not worried about clothes.
Everybody's
wearing a suit.
not like the young people now, that they worry about what to wear here. Kami, can you imagine, Leony, what was our uniform when we were in high school?
Khaki.
Our uniform was khaki.
Long shirt. We
And with
put
the
belt,
belt.
here and then 2 pockets. Inside the pocket, we went to school only with one half sheet of paper and a pencil. There, put it in our pocket. We had no books.
Or how many?
All the books were supplied there inside.
Leony, how many uniforms did you have?
Only one.
Oh, you know what we do? Because we have only one uniform each, no? And also the others. Now, we have to wash that at the end of the week, no? Pag bumagyo, hindi matuyo, we have the plancha. We iron it so that it will dry, so that we can wear it again on Monday. That's how we used our uniform.
And we never tasted leather shoes until we had our senior pro.
That was your
No, we
years,
use yung
Tennis
tennis shoes. And to us, we buy tennis shoes only once a year. Pag Disyembre, Christmas na, magagamit na namin ang tennis shoes namin.
Did you have parties then?
Huh?
Parties. Boys.
Birthday parties, party in school, but they were very simple and walang maraming.
You were asking about Session Road.
Yeah.
Ganito yan eh. You know, the members of the Philippine Commission built a small port house, Kogon, at the back of the now
Baden Powell.
Boy Scout. That used to be, the terminal used to be a hill, but a hill that sloped down like that. See? And Manila Railroad Company, bought Stanley streamers, they call it, and they made a garage there at the back of the mountain. and Baguio only had the road going down. So, because the station from the Mortis, because of the transportation, the Mortis to Baguio, then they built that Baguio Auto Line.
So from
It was built there below where Victory Liner is.
It's parking.
Okay. Then, you have to go down to the park, Burnham Park like that, to go to the market. So, they built the station road. And around the park like that, so that, and the church also, and the post office. You know, the post office was right where it is. It was surrounded by two roads, a circumferential road like that. One road was up the church, one road goes to teachers' camp. Ganon yun.
So, but how did you go up to Baguio then? Through, we saw a film earlier about trains. You get a train and go up by bus.
The train, the train is in the Mortis.
In the mornings.
And in the Mortis, you'd have buses for third class and private cars for people who pay a little more.
Up to the Mortis.
And from the Mortis, we come up to Baguio.
The Stanley steamer.
And before, it was one way lamang. You drive up to a certain place, stop until another one passes by. Hindi pwedeng magsabay. And then later on, they widen the roads already. Kanya pwede na yung more. And then, before, ang Cannon Road, punong-puno ng carts pulled by oxens. Yan ang mga nagdadala ng mga rice, lowland vegetables and so on to the market. And when they come down naman to the lowlands, may dala naman silang mga vegetables and so on from Baguio. That was how.
That's why we have in Cannon Road, Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, Camp 4, Camp 5, Camp 6. Because you have to wait for the car from one camp to the other to come out to where you are. See? One at a time. Hindi
So,
pwedeng
how long did travel
one
last?
direction. Oo.
It lasted
Yeah,
matagal.
Mga how many hours?
Oo. And you start from Baguio, Camp 6 yun. Ganon.
How many hours daw
Camp
yun?
1.
hours did it take?
Ang
Tita?
Cannon.
Before we used to travel about 2 hours and a half because
Just
we
to go
stop
up
at the
Cannon?
camps.
Just to go up Cannon, yeah.
You cannot move fast because you stop at the camps and wait for anything that was coming up. Or going down, ganon. And you know that down the last camp, that used to be very rainy because the road passed under the mountain like that. The mountain had a cleft like that. The road was built here. So all the water was raining there. That is where we used to,
To play.
take a bath and eat and do your thing before we went up to,
Baguio.
season. And then from season to Pangasinan na.
So, nung bata po kayo sino naman yung mga tao noon na parang matataas na tao? When you were young.
Ang mga matataas na tao, either American or Spanish or a rich Chinese or we have a Jew and the Japanese are mga
Pero most of the Japanese here were gardeners.
oo nga, who turned out to be during the war pala, mga colonels pala sila.
Gardeners.
Sa Japanese army. Pero sila, dito, gardeners and beautiful gardens ang ginagawa nila.
And beautiful. Baguio was beautiful with flower because of the gardeners. They had, for one thing, the Philippine Commission, during the planning for Baguio, they expected Baguio first to be a summer capital, to fulfill the functions of a summer capital, a marketplace, a educational place, hotels, tourism, and for the development of the natives. See, that's what when they planned, they thought of those.
So, were there many trees already then? O konti din? Trees? Forest?
They say that there were not too many pine trees then. They said,
So, who brought the pine trees?
Too many?
pine trees. It is not yung sasabihin mo, you see mountains and mountains of pine trees. Hindi eh. But
Walang
eventually,
pine trees sa kwan.
but
Kasi
eventually, if you
there is a herd of 13,000 cattle. How can you grow pine trees? Kaya ang park ganon. Kaya this level park is because there was cattle. So most of the trees were beyond the boundaries of Kapagway. Kapagway was the name of the Burnham Park at the beginning. And the Mateo Carino was the village captain, village chief, not captain, village chief.
kasi siyang pinakamayaman.
And
Mayaman siya
his
talaga.
house was
Kasi
there.
cattle.
Itong where the children's park at is that is the end of the boundary of Burnham Park na level. Aakyat ka, his house was there, right where the
Tita naman, from your vocations, being the first woman mayor of Baguio City, you went into what kind of project? Tourism? Or what? And Tita Leony naman is the first chemical engineer and she went into museum. So,
Well,
can
I
you say
was
something
not
about
here.
that?
I was not here when she was the mayor. I was living in
It's good she's not here because she's a stern critic.
she is a one. She was
Where were you, Leony?
was in Manila. Remember, I was anong pangalan? Yeah, I was in Adamson. I graduated in Adamson after 5 years, 1932 plus 5, 1938. 1939, I took the board exam. July 1939. Then I accepted immediately a position to teach physics in Mindanao, in Oroquieta, Mindanao. And I had a contract for 2 years. But after 1 year, the results of the board exam came out. So, I came home na. Because I was the first woman chemical engineer and I wanted to be famous also. So, I left Mindanao and I broke my contract
And you
for
went back
1
to
year.
Baguio, Tita?
And I stayed in Manila, went back to work for the Bureau of Animal Industry, and I was taking my master's degree in chemistry. See? And then the war broke out. That is the, see?
And then,
But and Baguio, and she was then the mayor
The mayor.
already.
I got into politics in 1940.
She got into politics and then she married
1940
Vic.
after
yun.
graduation.
So,
So,
me,
she was
I
in
got
Mindanao.
married also there in
Me, I
Manila.
was in Baguio.
and then,
Well,
And we only got together again in 1945.
after the war,
When my father was shot, we were in Manila. When my father was shot, my father and Mayor Siapno was killed by the Imsons. Then we had to come home to Baguio and stay in Baguio because nobody will take care of my family. Aside from the fact that Mr. San Agustin was released from Port Santiago, and because of the water cure, he had TB already. So the only way to cure him was to bring him to Baguio, because Baguio then was famous as the health center of the
I thought
Philippines,
honeymooners.
and that the air of Baguio would cure TB.
because at that time, there was no cure for TB except to go to a cool place. There was no such thing, yung mga present-day cures of TB, wala pa noon, wala pa. So, look at Quezon. Do you know that when the war started, Quezon was sleeping here in Baguio?
Sleeping here in Baguio because he also had consumption.
So you were both here during the war?
I don't know with her, but actually I was here.
During the war, Tita, you were not here.
I
After
was
the war.
there. I was working in the Bureau of Animal Industry.
Auntie Jean was here during
I
the
was
war.
here. I was here throughout the war.
She
I
was here
during
in
the
politics
carpet bombing.
already. See? And when I was working in the Bureau of Animal Industry, it was taken by the Japanese government. And I had to work under them with a Japanese supervisor. I learned a lot from them when I was working. analyzing the milk from Japan, for which they were analyzing their food and all that. Because I was working for the Bureau of Animal Industries. Yeah. And then when the war broke out, Manila was declared an open city, and I could not come home anymore. If I had to come home, I had to walk from Manila to Pampanga, get a bus from Pampanga to Pangasinan, ganon. And I did not come home. Besides, there was nothing to come home to already. They were already bombing Baguio. Where were you during the bombing, Jean?
Well, to start with, I think I was lucky that I had a family. That was an excuse for not working for the Japanese government. And I was, but I was selling. That was the only thing you can do during that time to make an earning. You have to do some kind of what these people now are doing, selling little things. Yeah. So after the war, I was here during the carpet bombing, because Yamashita was supposed to have retreated here. So Americans were bombing Baguio every day from 7 o'clock in the morning up to 5. Pag 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you see them already moving out and so on. And of course, our life was go home at 5, and then prepare for the next morning. 7 o'clock, we're already in church in our civilian
Buy
area.
kamotes.
And then don't leave any kamote, because if you leave any kamote on the table, mawawala. People were just
disappear.
So that
hungry.
was the food.
Yeah, because
That was the
people-
food. That was the
people
main
were
food.
just hungry. But I was here talagang carpet bombing, and the people in the lowlands were telling, the Americans were telling the people in the lowlands that if you have any relative or friends or family in Baguio, pray for them, because you cannot see them anymore.
In Manila,
It was
the food
that
then
bad.
was kasaba,
So it's more
kamuting
wood crops.
kahoy.
Yeah, basta food was that
What
important.
about the botanical garden, Auntie Jean? How did it all start?
The botanical, that was when I was president of the Baguio Convention, Tourism and Convention Association. And so they asked, what's going to be what is your going to be your project? And I said, I think I'm going to develop a place that is new. And so I decided I better, so I told them, I'm going to develop this place, Konyune, where the animals are, zoo and so on, so
So
on.
there was a
At
zoo
the-
before.
At that time, yeah. So I said, I'm going to develop that. And I remember the past president of the organization said, doon, ang layo-layo, sinong pupunta doon? He said. I said, well, precisely, that's why I want them to go to another place and not just one place. And so, with Joe de Alabanza and with a little money that I was able to put together, I put an Igorot village. And
Ili ti Igorot.
Ili de Igorot.
Ili means village.
And I had very representative Benguet, Ifugao, Kalinga. The only one I didn't have was Apayao, but I had it all complete. And I did not ask any young people to do it, or any people who I thought did not know. It was usually the old people, and they really did a very good job. And I was very proud of that place. It was really nice. Only after I was no longer president, it was not taken care of, and little by. And then in the meantime, the Marcos rebels were already getting in, and so on and so on. And so eventually deteriorated. But even before that, I had another museum, and that is the Museum of Igorot Architecture. And I had to depend a lot on William Scott's book on the architecture of the different huts and so on. And I had explanatory notes there, and people went. I'm very proud of that because people were very interested in how those houses were built.
So how did Tita Leony take over then, the museum?
It's still,
Not yet.
not
Not
yet.
yet. She was still far away, uninterested, disinterested in anything of the museum. She became
I
interested
didn't have anything to do with the museum until 1985.
until the earthquake came, and destroyed whatever.
And nobody would take care of
Yeah,
it.
and then whatever museum I put together as the Igorot Museum, ay wala ka na, tapos ka na.
What's that?
Ah,
Hindi pa natin ano yung earthquake.
The museum started from, according to the history of Jean, the museum, she gathered all those that were given to her, and some of them she bought, were placed in the session hall of the City Hall.
it started in my room as a
In her
vice mayor.
office in the session hall. But things started to disappear, and the place was getting too small, so she transferred it to UP. But the UP people put it at the back of the auditorium, spread around there, and anybody can pick it. Before she knew it, there were very few already, and many of them were destroyed, like those that came from the museum. These two gods in front of our they were already broken when I got
So that's
them.
very
So,
old.
see. But and another thing is, when finally they had a museum as given by the DOT, the curators were interested only in the displaying. So that when they displayed, they just displayed. There was no system, there was no... They had an inventory, but I don't know what happened to the inventory. They had no report, they had no nothing. So, matter of fact, 2 years before I took over, that's in 1980 already, they were asking me to be the curator of to take care of the museum. I said, ayaw ko nga. I will look for my own salary. Kawawa naman ako. Sabi ko, it happened. It's the same thing. So finally, the one who convinced me was Jean and Mrs. Bowman's, Nene, and the rat. But they sent Cutting to me. Cutting was the chairman of the museum for how many years, ano? And they were only making, display na
At
lang.
that time, may foundation na.
So,
But the ones who were interested in the foundation was Bert Florescan, di ba? And the heads of the schools.
so Tita, what about I know you were there inside the museum when the earthquake occurred, and Auntie Jean was in the office of Congressman Honor Aquino then, right? So do you have any memories of the earthquake?
No, all the property of Jean that were in the museum were only cataloged and displayed when I took over.
I know.
But they were there already.
We had our nicest jars there because Leony asked that each family, if they want to put an exhibit, can have one place, which we did. We made it an Oteza the
The
Guia
shelf.
shelf, and we put there our best jars, which of course was destroyed during the earthquake.
She had a very wide place because she had so many jars.
Not only that, I had the corner.
So,
She
but-
had the corner.
Tita, so what can you say was your experience during the earthquake when you were there inside?
Ano?
Your experience during the earthquake inside the museum.
She was not there.
She was
Were
there.
you there?
She was there.
Huh?
When
She
you
was
inside the museum.
Yeah, she was
during the
having a
earthquake?
meeting.
No, I was not in charge.
No,
I was,
you were inside the museum during the earthquake.
I was inside the
NPDC.
library of John Hay.
Who was meeting in the museum?
And they were holding, the SOMTA were holding a monthly meeting in the museum. I was already the curator, but on the day of the earthquake, I had an exhibit from the Far Eastern University, paintings, the School of Fine Arts of Far Eastern. They were exhibiting their plan, and up in the museum, the second floor, Yeah, the second floor, the Sonta.
They were meeting. I
We're
remember we
meeting
broke
in
the
the second
windows.
floor. When it according to them, when it started to shake, and it did not stop as they wanted, they started to run out. One by one, takbuhan daw sila.
No, they were
And-
trapped, tita,
Yeah,
inside.
me, I was in the library of John Hay researching on the desire to, what do you call it, on the desire to put up a docent committee because I didn't know anything about it. And when the earthquake started, the shelves of John Hay, very cute yung library niya, all fell down and it shook so much. Me, I was standing in front of a shelf, but when I was thrown away, I landed on a sofa, the most comfortable sofa in Kingdom.
Ito was Ate Jean.
Ayun.
Where were you?
Ako, I was on the 5th floor of National Life building.
Oh,
Yeah, of National Life. I was on the 5th floor. We were having a meeting of all things Beneco. And our chairman was Congressman Aquino. When it started to shake, I could hear the clickling of the one. We didn't mind it. The second time it shook, the man who was near me stood up already, and I stood up already also. Then it shakes again. We stop. Then when it stopped again, we ran again until we went down the stair until we finally reached the road. That was it.
Scary.
but the American, John Hay was still American then, When I landed in the sofa, I was scared, but it was completely shaking. You know who was in charge of the library? Si Juan, asawa ni Marasigan. The little girl, Chona. Chona Marasigan was in charge. And I told her, when it was shaking, don't move, I told her. And then when it stopped, she said, now I will go out. Sabi ko, that is not the time to go out. Sabi ko, ganon, because you don't know where you will be. But any rate, I said, basta, if it shakes, you stop. Sabi ko, ganon sa kanya. Don't run when it's shaking. Finally, we got out of the library. And here comes the truck with the U.S. John Hay truck with them. Anybody in there, you come out, we'll bring you to the gate. They were very efficient. In the truck, they already had water, they had flashlight, they had everything. So when they dropped us at the gate, there was something to eat and something to drink. But then, ano na yung kwan?
The main gate,
The one that, the hotel in front, what was that?
Nevada.
Hindi, sequence.
Nevada, Hotel Nevada, the hotel.
Oo.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it was not there.
Then
yet.
Hotel Nevada was shaking
It was,
and people were falling down and there I was standing at the gate like that looking stupid kasi I was dazed. I learned back like that and I saw Nevada, Hyatt, the top of Hyatt. You could see it from
Yeah,
there then.
from-
Was falling down like that and here Nevada in front of me was falling. I was just looking because I didn't know what to do. I was in a daze until finally the daughter of the Tabanda saw me. And she said, Auntie, what are you doing here? She had a car. She took me in the car. She brought me home. Me to find my house shaking also. All. Everything was out. I tell you that earthquake. And immediately, second day, I reported to you already. Not to you. Who was
Yeah, I
this?
was there.
Huh? I reported to you and volunteered for earthquake work. That is how I got into the tourism. Yeah. And every day then, still,
Yeah.
we had a car. Every day, she and her staff, ako kasali na. We went to look for Americans, tourists, who were staying in different hotels, di ba? And we tried to document all of those. You remember those two lovers in Park Hotel, in here in front? The hotel of the,
Baguio.
Baguio Park.
I see. One last, Auntie Leony. What can you recall about the old stone market? Siguro yan yung ano natin.
Ano?
Old Stone Market. What can you say about the
Ah.
Old Stone Market daw?
The stone market was built in 1913. And it served Baguio very well. You know, when stalls were growing up all around it, it was not, it was very well preserved.
Made of Baguio stones.
Oh,
And it's cleaned every week with strong
Hose.
water from hose from fire. From
and
the
it was
fire
very
department.
beautiful, Anna Jean.
And it was very clean. It was very nice.
And then what happened? Imelda had it destroyed.
Then, during the carpet bombing, my family and I were in that hotel, but which is now the DP Development Bank. And that's just across the bank.
Across.
They were bombing this, and we could see it. Huh? The planes were saying, and then also in the city hall, the same thing. They were bombing it, so those places were burning. And I was telling my Vic, I said, "Come on, labas na tayo." Huh? Sabi niya, wag. Eric was with us, no? And then, and then later on, shortly after, we could hear already the plane as if it was going down. Getting farther and farther. He said, "Ay, umalis na ata. You know, my mother was crying. She thought that we really got it, because the bombing was really, really close.
Ah, terrible.
What was worse, the war
After
or
that, we
earthquake?
transferred already to Aurora Hill. That was until my mother naman got caught with the bombing also, and her air raid shelter also collapsed, and so she had to be taken to the hospital for the next 1 or 2 months, you know.
Terrible that bombing, ano.
And during that carpet bombing, that was the time also when Halsima, who was in the hospital,
In a
Notre
wheelchair.
Dame Hospital, came out, and then he was hit by a shrapnel. Ayun, namatay siya. He was trying to call for help, but everybody was really running. You know, you want to help using some help, pero you're also running for your life. It's terrible.
The old Notre Dame.
What was
Hospital.
scarier, Tita, the war or the earthquake?
Ano yung kini-question niya
Different.
kanina?
Market, the stone market.
The stone market. Then, you know, later what happened? We were trying to preserve it. That was our first taste in community work.
Yeah, there's one to ask about.
Imelda wanted it, and
No,
then
we had a resolution
Oo,
signed by
we made a
Cecil,
resolution.
Leony, me, Ricarding Paraan, and so on. And I was able to give it to President Marcos. And sabi niya sa akin, come on, kang ganun, let's go to Mansion House. Kanya I with Lardisabal and the father of Emily Bugayon.
Buenos.
No, not
The
Bueno.
old man.
We were only about 5 in Mansion House. Then it's funny because the president told Lardisabal, "What is this I hear?" He says that you're not getting along with the organizations. Sabi ko, why did the president say that? He was reading my letter. He probably thought that was what in my letter. You know, as a matter of fact, that disciple did not talk to me in the next few months. And every time there's an appointment and my name is there, they said, bakit ganon? He also says, palitan mo yung pangalan yun. he really thought that I was responsible for what the president said. Anyway, the president said, you better join us for dinner and tell the first lady that you want the market to
Yeah.
be preserved.
The
But
first
you know-
lady was the one who had it.
But the first lady, we were in the dinner with maybe we were about 10 or 12 people, and the first lady kept on talking and talking, so I had no chance to talk. And later on, of course, her idea was to put up
Maharlika.
the Maharlika, and of course that is one act of the first lady that was disappointing, because we were hoping that even the facade of the Baguio market be preserved. Eh, hindi eh. inalis niyang lahat eh. Kanya nalis yung kwan sa
Wala.